Hello, hello. Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Wialon Community Open Mic webinar. The Open Mic webinars are all about sharing practical experience, real stories, and valuable lessons from across our global partner network. And today's topic is especially relevant for anyone building products and solutions or entire businesses on top of Wialon. And I'm really excited to welcome Orlando Monagas from Gurtam, who has spent over 10 years developing with Wialon. And today Orlando is here to share what he's learned along the way. So as always, hello, Orlando.
Hi, can you hear me well?
Yep.
All right, great.
Okay, so the webinar is being recorded and later will be available on our YouTube channel. And of course, I'll share the link in our partners chats. If you have any questions during the talk at the end of the presentation, we will have a Q&A session. So Orlando will go through them at the end. Okay, so let's get started. Orlando, the mic is yours.
Thank you, Katarina. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. It is my pleasure to be here with the community. Today, I'll be sharing our experience developing solutions within the Wialon ecosystem. So, in the group's conversations and community events, I often read and hear questions regarding the API, integrations, and Wialon-based apps. However, the answers are often superficial and require some degree of expertise to understand. And that can't be shared in the simple WhatsApp message. So my goal today is to provide a perspective on how to approach this project step by step, or at least try to, right? My name is Orlando Monagas from Gurtam, and we've been developing Wialon-based solutions since 2015. So, okay, the slides. I knew I was forgetting something, right? All right. So where do we start? The first place to start with any project that requires any type of development is the scope. What I need to build, the size, and the plan to make it happen. It all starts really with a conversation and usually some sort of documentation. If it's an integration, then you want the integration or API docs, which is essentially the set of instructions on how the other party needs to receive the data you will send from Wialon. If it's an app, its description will help to understand the data workflows needed to build it properly. So understanding the size of the projects in terms of units and usage also helps in the decision of infrastructure and tech choice, right? So that's where you decide the size of the server, what technology you should implement. And honestly, usually most of the requests are related to integrations. So sending fleets data to a third-party system like a large transportation company, a cargo monitoring company, ERP, a business intelligence app like a Power BI, Airtable, and so on. Furthermore, like to build Wialon-based apps, you will need the API. To summarize, many, if not all, of your projects will start here too. So what's the Wialon API? It is our first step of building with Wialon, right? There you will get everything you need to interact with the system. On the presentation, you have a QR code that you can scan to follow the conversation, because I will be making reference to methods that you'll find there in detail, because we don't have time to expand on each one of them, right? This is an overview. So where would I start, really? The first interaction you will have with the system is getting access to it. And that means getting a token and then logging in, a two-step approach. A token is a computer speak for password and user combination, right? So you will need this to authenticate and get access to the account and its contents, right? Then a pro tip here is that account must have full access to the resource and its items to work properly. As I said before, access takes two steps. First, you would generate the token using the Wialon OAuth method described again in documentation, or you can use our token generator, which you have the link for there in the slide. You set the token's expiration date, and once you have that, then it only expires when you reach that expiration date. You change the password, or the token is deleted from the Wialon session management segment found under settings in your account. So once you have the token, then you need to use the API again, the method called token then slash login, where you will use that said token generated in the previous step to finally access the API. You can have as many tokens as you need. For example, one per every user or account that uses your system or that will use your system. After you gain access to the Wialon API, you will most likely now want to get the units and their data, right? Again, this will be a two-step approach. So first, to get the units and their information, you will need to use the core search method of the API. This method will be as well useful for other entities like unit groups and resources. This core search method allows you to get the units under the account and their data, such as name, IDs, the hardware that they have, the IMEI, the last message, custom fields, sensors, and so on. Everything that you see when you create a unit, when you edit a unit. A good tip here is but this is for the entire Wialon API, is that it works with a flag system. Essentially, this is what allows you to decide per each method what info specifically you will be requesting. And you could certainly bring everything that you see when you edit a unit, when you use any other method, but that will make the request lower. And you should really only ask for the information you need. And for that, you need the proper flags. And this applies to the entire API, as I said before. So then that will, okay, so I was on the flags, right? So, all right, so this, so after you get the units, then you must get the messages, the data, the juice. And there are a few steps to follow. First, you need to use the message load interval method, again, that will buffer the messages first, and it's used for any given unit, again, setting the flags properly. That method will buffer those messages. It might take a moment, and then you will use another method, a get messages, to obtain them in a JSON format that then you can use and process. So to summarize, up to this point, you have accessed the system and got your first batch of data, right? So you got the units, you have the last message, and that's fine. If you're managing a small project for a few units, that might be everything you need to do the trick, right? And that will help you shape your app or integration. However, getting those messages through the API is complex for multiple units and not very effective if you're handling larger projects or real-time data transmission. Let me change my slide. So, for example, if you're dealing with a decent size fleet and the service requires real-time data, you might want to go for another option because the API limits might affect the project or the process will become inefficient. For that, Wialon has the retranslators, a tool that allows real-time transmission of messages from Wialon to a specific destination. You can set the retranslator aiming to your server and sending the data in binary format. And then your backend, your app, is the one that will be in charge of interpreting that. And now you will get every single message of the chosen units, right? So, however, handling large quantities of data and decoding the binaries might be difficult, yeah, complex, but there is an alternative that can make your team's life easier. And that's flespi, another great Gurtam tool. And you can send the data to flespi either by retranslators or directly from the devices. And really, flespi, as I said before, is a great platform and it probably deserves an entire conversation around it. However, in an attempt to oversimplify it, it allows us to standardize and ingest loads of telemetry data, not only from Wialon, but the devices themselves, and then work with that data, either streaming it to another service in a specific format like MQTT, or again, by directly using Flespi's API, which has less restrictions and is better suited for real-time applications, right? So the platform does have a steep learning curve, right? Flespi, I mean. But in the long run, it will save you lots of time and problems. With Flespi, you get the data that is easy to handle. It takes care of the workload, as I was mentioning before, handling big chunks of data. And then your app can get in real time by subscribing to the MQTT topic and receive a standardized JSON with parameters. Now you have unique data and you have real-time data, which are both ultra useful, but there are a few extra pieces of information that can really shape that application or complete scope or the amount of data that you need to finish or complete a project, fulfill the scope of it. The first one would be the events. And we have found that the best and easiest way to get the events is using the webhook option, which is available when you set up an alert directly in the platform, just like setting an email notification. So you set the server, establish the payload, and that's it, right? Then again, your app will need to interpret that payload, but that's how you receive them, right? Other pieces of data, like geofences, as we've seen before with the login, as we've seen with the messages, also follow this pattern of making two processes. So to get geofences, again, you need to use the core search method with the proper flags to get first the resource and the geofences with their IDs, and then use those IDs with the geofence details method to obtain the coordinates and the rest of the information. These flags and following these steps are key when working with the Wialon API. However, this is another part of the story or another side of the coin that is usually not mentioned. Connecting with Wialon is just the first part of the story. The applications that you build need to live somewhere. It needs a home, and that home is a server. And the easiest server options are often cloud services. And there are lots of them out there with different prices, specs, and levels of service. At Gurtam, we can help you navigate through those complicated options and find the best one for you. So after the server is set up and running, your team can now deploy the application. So this combination of tools and data allows teams like ours the ability to build advanced, reliable applications with a quick turnaround. And even though it sounds complex and it's definitely not easy, it's not impossible. Unless today with a bigger community and the new versions and tools in the Wialon's API documentation, which makes it easier to navigate. So let's talk a bit about what can be built, right? What can we build? Over the years, we have developed over 50 integrations of different third-party software with Wialon, and also platforms to manage them all. So usually when you build integration, which uses you get the token, you send the data, usually it's last message or real-time data, it depends on the specs. You use what we have talked about today. Um, it stays on the backend, right? What we have done is that we have also built UI interface as well. I mean, yes, user interfaces to manage them, pause them, select the fleet, and have multiple, right? They're very popular here in Latin America, and as I've seen in the group, it's a trend. It's not only with transportation companies and logistic companies, it's also sending sometimes the data to an ERP. We've recently got a lot of requests of building like custom dashboards with Power BI, Airtable, and that kind of application. So that's also useful. And then as an additional comment, there are now more tools to like 8n, Zapier, where you get basic data to those tools, services, I don't know how to call them, and then you can really connect Wialon or any app for that matter to multiple places on the internet easily. Now it always takes some technical ability. There's no like silver bullet to it like um let's just ask ChatGPT and we'll get that integration running. I mean, it can definitely help you polish things, but it won't do the job for you. It requires some skills, right? Then you can also build entire applications around it, like a monitoring center. We have built a few over the years, and essentially those are apps that connect to Wialon to get the units and their alerts, and then be able to manage them to provide en route support to drivers, trucks, merchandise, people, anything related to events. Instead of disappearing, of having them stuck on your email, you certainly have now a way to manage them all in a centralized, standardized, and organized way where you can always follow up and nothing falls through the crack. This one, I saw an example today, a partner from Marruecos, from Morocco, that asked about fuel card system or integration. And that can certainly be built with different degrees of complexity. You can integrate to the fuel provider, and those transactions that are sent again through their API can be inserted into Wialon and fuse with the data available in the fuel sensors or in the device itself, right? And then another option, which I believe it when it really explodes, and it's when you build niche logistics apps or entire platforms around Wialon. So from personnel transportation to ready-mix logistic process management, it is possible to use Wialon's tracking and sensor data to create custom monitors or really full-fledged platforms that live around Wialon as a part of your backend, right? Generating all this data, generating all this alerts and aggregated information that's helpful for your projects and developing entire platforms around it, right? So before we wrap up, because I know this one too technical, right? I want to highlight a few important things. When we talk about integrations, Wialon-based apps, it's easy to focus on the API, messages, the flags that you need, the retranslators, real-time data. Where an application is much more than that. The API is just a doorway, it's an avenue, it's not the entire thing. It's not the house, it's not the city. So once you get the data or once you extract the data, you still need a design of the system. Well, will it run? How will it scale? If it will scale. How do you store this information? For how long? How people, users, systems interact with it? How the data in real time being alerts, messages is processed. and how it really integrates with the rest of the customer's operation or systems, really. And those pieces matter just as much as the API calls, and in many cases, that's the entire thing. That's the entire purpose. So building a solution means thinking in terms of the architecture and how the information will flow within the app, what you need it to do. And one thing that is not mentioned often is the maintenance. Someone needs to take care of the application for it to run properly through time. So it's understanding where really Wialon fits and where it doesn't, and how tools like retranslators, flespi, cloud services, and your own backend come all together into something coherent. And that's a real job. That's a real work. That's how you turn that scope, that idea, that theory, that project into a final product that you can deliver to an end customer. Our experience over the years has taught us that really having success with an application doesn't come from being too good with the API, or yeah, it's a matter of connecting the API, the backend, and then planning for that long-term scale and maintenance of the application. That life cycle of the app is too important. And then also that solution that needs to solve someone's actual problem, because if not, we've got down that road that we think we're solving an issue, and then no one uses the app, right? It happens. So if there's one takeaway, I would close with that Wialon is a very powerful foundation. But really what can differentiate your company or your projects is what you can build with it or on top of it. That lets you really reach more customers and larger customers and projects, as many guys on the group as always at least signaled, right? So thank you for joining today. I hope this perspective approach helps you with your next project, or talk with a development team, or try to build your own. Um, I wanted to provide like a complete view of what it really takes to get an app live, and it really goes a little bit beyond just the API. So I'm happy to share more information or answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Orlando, for your presentation and for sharing your experience with us today. So for now, we have like two questions, and the first one: are any of the solutions you have built using Wialon APIs available to be purchased?
Yes, we have. We can connect you to our monitoring center. We also have the integrations platform available, and we can always build something custom for you. Um, so yeah, we're here to help, and even if it's only to answer questions, we're open to it. We have always been. Um, Also, this is how we have learned, so yeah, please reach out, and if it's a project, if it's a question, we're here to help.
Great. And the second one, I see that John and Srinivas already answered a bit, but maybe you'd like to dive a bit deeper. Can the Wialon API be used to add units and geofences, or does it only let you read info?
That's a good question, and it also lets you create things. Really, you can imagine the API like it's a set of tools. It's really methods. Um, for example, everything that you see on the Wialon interface, it's connected to a API method. So if you can create, if you can edit, if you can delete it, then you can use the API to do the same thing, right? You just need to, again, connect the dots. Have you seen, you heard, there's sometimes a step approach to working with the API. Like you need to get an ID first and then use that ID. to get the second thing and so on. But yeah, it's actually really useful. For example, the automation of retranslator creation, inserting events, for example, for fuel fillings as the fuel integration project requires, for example, or even using an app, right, to create geofences where you need to upload a bunch of them for a new customer, right? That people can just download an app, use their phone's location, and upload a geofence and let that create itself in Wialon, or building an app for your technical teams to install the application to make sure everything's installed properly. So yeah, short answer, yes, you can.
Okay, thank you. And another question. Have you worked with logistics and fleet run APIs?
Not Fleet Run, but we have worked with the logistics API. In Peru, we built a while ago a system that works for insurance companies. So when people call and make a claim, I crashed my car. So an operator takes a call, they upload the info to the system, and when they finish, it creates an order on, or yeah, in logistics. And then we get the link from logistics, and they are able to share that with the end customer, so they know when their insurance agent will come and rescue them, deal with a crash or a collision or whatnot. Yeah, and also the Nimbus application. With Nimbus, I have a nice experience. We built a few things around Nimbus, but I heard about this platform called Lovable and AI stuff, which is nice if you're like building a website. But I decided to test it with the Nimbus API because a customer wanted a sort of demo of what we could do. And I was able to build a small dashboard, like for understanding the stops where the next bus would arrive. So yeah, again, you need to deal with tokens in Nimbus again, but you can build also applications around the other Wialon apps like Logistic, Nimbus, Fleet Run, and whatnot.
So looks like we don't have more questions. Maybe someone would like to ask something, or I'm pretty sure that Orlando is ready to answer your questions in the future. Yep.
Definitely.
So thank you so much. Thank you so much, Orlando, for sharing your experience with us today. And thank you so much for everyone who joined us for this open mic session. The recording will be available in a few days, and as I said, I will share the link in our partners chats. So thank you so much again, and see you at the next open mic webinar.
Thank you all. Have a great day.